So how have you been, Jenna?
Good. Hanging in there.
Good. I see your posts every now and again that you put up. It's looks like there's some good stuff you're doing. Some real women empowerment.
Yep, trying to.
Nice.
We're here. All right. We're good. Thank you, everybody. We're learning and we're getting better every year. Our production,
Great.
every episode we're getting better. We want to thank people who stay, continue to tune in with us. We got to get better with our marketing and our promoting and letting folks know when these events are happening. So, yeah, I think we're live and ready to rock and roll. That being said,
all right.
Yeah, here we go. This is Rasen Golodafari.
And I'm Jenna, and welcome to
People Talking Kali. Yes, how's everybody doing today? We thank you for tuning in. We got a good friend and a special guest here with us today. Mandala Jason Jones, coming out of Wyoming, Red Desert Dogs. Is that correct, my friend?
That is correct.
And just to inform folks here, so far I've been blessed to have actually met a lot of the guests on the show. I first met Mandala Jason, I believe it was 2014 or maybe 2015 at the Grand Global Alliance down in Texas. And
right.
Yeah. And since that time, you've been a good friend and a great guide and mentor to Jenna and I in navigating this Kali. So we thank you for taking the time and coming on the show.
Absolutely, man. It's been good. Now, I think, did we meet then? I think there was another seminar you came up to in Salt Lake City with Grand Tuhangahe. We had down at one of the National Guard armories. Was that before or after?
I don't know if I was at that one, sir.
No?
I was.
You were at Utah one time before I came to Utah, the second year.
Okay. It's quite possible. You know what? There's been a couple of times we've had the opportunity to connect. Long story short.
Right. The memory goes back. I'm pretty sure. I think I can't remember the dates. Everything to me before today was last week or last month.
Well, I trust your memory before mine. No. I trust yours before mine, sir. I trust yours before mine. All right. Well, it's good to see you again. Let me get my big face off here. Okay. All right. We got people tuning in and starting to just chime in and say greetings. And so folks in France are already saying hello to you, Jason. And we have, so far, Morgan's already been chiming in from the West Coast, in Portland. And so folks are glad to see you. Those are folks who know you. Some of us here on the East Coast may not know who you are. And so just in short, who are you, Mandala Jason? How'd you get into PTTA and what got you here? What got you on this journey?
It's a long road. It's a long road. It goes like we were talking a little before. It goes all the way back. 1989 is when I started in martial arts. Pikiti Tertia itself, I started, I want to say probably late 2003, early 2004. Wow. Was probably my first introduction to it. Did a lot of training with Tuhan Jared. At that time, I believe he was Matasana Guru. And then recently Mandala, just shortly after that. So he was teaching privately in Salt Lake City, West Valley. It's all kind of the same metro area.
Oh, wow. So what was that other martial art that from 89 to 2003 that got you started on this journey? Right.
So I started here local in Green River, Wyoming in Panetta's Kenpo Karate. There was a school here in Green River, and there's a school in Rock Springs, which is just about 12 miles away, where Mr. Panetta, the head of the school, was instructing. Like I said, I started that in '89, just a punk kid. I was, staying up late watching Kung Fu theater. Everything was Enter the Ninja, some old Sho Kosugi film, and my parents to get into martial arts. Watching that stuff because I needed to be a ninja. Yeah. Beg.
Listen, Bronx, New York, 1989. Some of us were buying the ninja shoes and the outfit.
Oh yeah.
Getting ninja stars. I don't know, throwing them at boards. So
yeah. going down to the mall and buying the ninja stars at the little junk shops with the posters and the switchblade combs and wearing the tabby boots and taper leg pants.
Yeah.
I had to look like a fool, but
it got us here, you know.
Got us here. But like I said, really, I begged my parents for a long time to get me started in martial arts, and finally, like I said, when I was about 14 years old, they went ahead and entered me into the school. I was one of the youngest. There really wasn't even a kids class at that point in time. So there were adults, and this was, late 80s, early 90s, and people were hard. It was still kind of very old school martial art, very old school kind of karate situation, all in there with full adults. I mean, 20, 30, 40-year-old men. And
yeah,
I stuck with that for a long time. I was active in the school. What year was it? 1994. So 5 years into the system is when I earned my black belt in that system.
Wow.
So
Nice.
For those who know that journey to start, and get to that accomplishment, that was big. So then how did Kali come into the picture and to Jared?
Some of you guys, I know you know him, Mandala Glass out of Washington.
Yes, sir.
So, of course, always interested in the weapons. And when I was doing the Kempo karate, it was not only, the regular class, but we had tournaments that we would go to in the Salt Lake and into the Denver area. And the tournaments, we always went to the open tournaments. So you had guys from all different styles and different backgrounds that would come in, and we would compete in forms or kata, in fighting, and it was open point fighting formats. At the time also had weapons, and then later self-defense came into it. And then, after a few years, it started getting into the flashy stuff, the music, the choreographed things, but I was out of it by the time that really started to take off. So Lamont Glass was a wildlife biologist and got assigned out here at one of our bird refuges. And he started in the Kempo class. He came from Washington, had some background. I actually sat on his black belt panel and tested him.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, Lamont had a little bit of background. He'd done some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he had done some Serrata Cabales. And one of the things we did with our black belt tests is it was an all-day event. You came in early in the morning. You went through all of your basics. You went through all of your techniques from day number one to the last technique you learned. There's a question and answer period. There's a breakdown period. There's all the forms and katas and everything that you went through. And we usually ended up with a large sparring section, which was basically just a hazing ceremony. But we also, during the question and answer period, one of the things I remember touching on mine, he also brought up was the system didn't have a lot of weapons. We had, at that time, there were, I'll say, 4 self-defense techniques against somebody stabbing with a knife, but it was the old Japanese style, just like you're throwing a punch out of a hard stance. 2 or 3 club techniques at the time. The katas with the Chinese broadsword and the bow staff, most of the information had been lost. What people were actually performing or doing during the forms, that understanding of why had slipped away. So the 2 of us started experimenting and putting our heads together. It's like, well, we don't have these weapon techniques. What do we need to do? So we tried to re-engineer the wheel, which never works out quite right. But, from his little bit of experience that he already had, we tried applying this to the Kempo techniques that we already knew. And that stuff wasn't working out so well. So we started collecting videos, because we're out here in the sticks. That's not like you can go to the Kali school down the road or anything. There's other martial arts schools, but there wasn't anything that was teaching anything like Kali. So some of the first video series we got were Dog Brothers Martial Arts.
Okay.
And we watched that and we're like, oh, well, look what these guys are doing. Look what, they had, show their drills, so showed some of their Sinawalis and their patterns. And then from the Serratas that Lamont did. And then, we just started collecting all this information everywhere we could. And we actually started to develop a curriculum ourselves. We're cutting and pasting. It's like, there were whole nights I remember sitting around my kitchen table and we were literally had sheets of paper and we were cutting out the names of drills and techniques and put this over here and put this over here and cut this out. We don't like that anymore. And we dabbled with that for probably I want to say almost 3 years.
Wow.
That's right.
Until one day, one of our other students in the class shows up with a flyer. Says, I don't know if you guys would be interested in this, but since you're doing that weapon stuff, I picked it up for you. It was Jared Wihongi and Grand Tuhangahe. It was a seminar that he was having. Mm-hmm. And it was like, 2-3 months in advance. So we actually called Jared up. His number was on that. Mm-hmm. And talked to him a little bit, found out he was running a regular class. And we just asked, can we stop in on your class? Can we bother you for a private lesson? We want to bounce some ideas off you, show you what we've been doing. And he, totally accepting of it. He was really cool about the whole deal. Straight up with us. Yeah, this is when my class is. Here's the address. I have an hour I can spend afterwards for you guys. Yeah. And, like I said, we spent almost 3 years, like reinventing the wheel. We went down one seminar, 200, Matas Naguro at that time. We worked out with him, had some questions. He started showing us a few things. We came back and we took that whole file, just threw all that stuff away.
Wow.
Not a waste of time, but we could see where we had been going, and I think it was very clear to us the path was not the direction we were expecting to go or where we wanted it to go. So we shifted gears, and after that, we were about probably anywhere from every 3 to 6 weeks. We'd carpool down to Salt Lake City. We'd do Tuhon's 2-hour-long class, and we'd have them for a private for an hour or 2 hours afterwards. And then we just started chasing the seminar circuit with, everybody that was around teaching at that time. And for years we followed that.
Mm-hmm.
Just eating up everything we could.
Right.
There's something missing.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of perseverance and dedication and persistence. I resonate with that. I know Jenna resonates with that without getting into our stories, but just when you're hungry for it and passionate,
oh yeah,
you'll find a way. Like you said, you may not be on the right track, but you'll keep pushing until the teacher reveals.
Right.
Beautiful to hear.
Right.
Never knew the story in detail.
Yeah, and it's a great bridge, because I remember like a couple of shows back, one of our like chat people were saying, how do you bridge? A common question, because how do you bridge Kali between other systems, or how do you bridge Kali groups? And, at the time when, Kali was very new to the world, it was the people like yourself and Mandala Lamont who were like, and people who were just on this, really chasing, and traveling to get this information, so that now there's many places that you can go in the world and learn about Kali, and that's so beautiful. But it took people who were making bridges, and so it's just a beautiful thing that's now what exists with Kali. But for a long time, that wasn't the case. It was still very much what we call an underground martial system, because Kali is not 100% academy friendly, in the sense that it's not all. It's been made to be more child friendly, but it's definitely. Once you I noticed that a lot of people who train Kali, who are, have progressed in the system, have trained and if not mastered another system. And, you just look at more. And, it tends to be a great kind of a culmination of your martial journey, to train Kali. So for you, karate is very, it's tempering based. It's an empty hand martial system. So how did you transition from having to do the rigid stances in the kata, something that I'm familiar with, and having to temper your body to be the weapon, to now be in a system that's mainly weapons? How did you transition that mentally and physically?
It's, crazy you mentioned that, and the bridging. reminds me early on as we were training, because the Kempo that we do, it's a little bit more of a soft style.
Okay.
I mean, we were solid on our stances. My instructor in Green River had a background in Shotokan karate.
Okay.
Very, very hard traditional Japanese. So, I mean, we were solid in the stances, forms. We were hitting stuff, tempering bodies and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Our head guy, Mr. Panetta up in Rock Springs, had a background in Western boxing.
Okay.
And then the Kempo it's more of a Tracy's lineage, and what we had was still a little bit heavier of the Chinese influence than the Japanese. So there was some soft style, so it wasn't too hard to transition that. But I remember a lot of the times as we were training, you know, either I would be having difficulty with the Sinawali we were doing or the pattern that we were set, you know, maybe a striking pattern or set up for something. And Lamont would turn to me and he would say, "Oh, this is just like the technique 5 swords." And it was like, oh, so then we had a link back to muscle memory on a technique that we already had. Mm-hmm. And you could hammer that drill, or we'd be working instructing something that's like, oh no, this is like the technique cyclone. This is where you move into here. It's this segment out of that form or this or that. And we bounce this off of each other. But what really, really helped with the bridge, and also, you know, where a glaring difference with the Kali and every other martial art is having someone to train with. Mm-hmm. Because the Kempo I can still go through all my forms. I can still go through all my techniques. I can do this. I can show it in the air. I can move through these patterns. I can visualize what I'm doing with it and explain it, but there's not the other person there giving feedback. Right. With the Kali, whenever we trained, you had to have somebody else there with you to go. I mean, there's some of it that, yes, you can do, or you can strike a tire just like you can hit a bag with your hands. But to do the drills, to learn the ins and outs of the techniques, right, having a partner is vital.
Mm-hmm. This should be an axiom right here. I mean, if you find a good school and a good instructor in PTK, that's great. But if you also have a partner, a training partner, a friend, that is, treat those people nice. Those people are very, very important. Yeah. You know, your training partner is, like you said, that's the person outside of class that's helping the material come alive. And go, sir, go.
Yeah, it's absolutely invaluable. And then what we found, I mean, Lamont's a phenomenal martial artist as it is too, very talented guy. We would take these drills like, you know, because everybody does the Kode Mama or the Sabayan drill. We go down, spend 2 hours with Tuhon Jared. We would learn the Sabayan drill, just the core, just the base of it. You know, maybe he would throw in the number 2 thrust or the number 3 thrust or double up. And then we would come back, and for the next 3 or 4 weeks, at least twice a week, we were working out together, hour, 2 hours at a time, sometimes 3. And not only working with it, but exploring it. And it's like, well, you know, we would take it as like, what if I change my footwork pattern to this? You know, here's this thrust. What if I change the angle slightly on this thrust? What if we open the range? What if we close the range? And we got into the transferable methodology unknowingly to us. It's like, can we do this with knives? Can we do this with 6-foot staffs? Can we do this empty hand? And we would just bounce these ideas off of each other and just work back and forth. And then we'd show back up, and Jared would give us another little bite of knowledge.
This is the way. You know, hopefully if my students are listening or other students, you have to become intimate with the material on your own. Do not just wait to come back to class. What Jason is talking about resonates with Jenna and I. I mean, Jason, this is what it is. Working with that material endlessly, exploring it. And then going back, asking questions like, please correct me. Where could it be better? Where could it be, you know, how could I make it, what's vulnerable in this area? That's great to hear. Right. So then you're watching the Dog Brother videos. When was it like, you know what, I want to do this? I actually participate and get in there. How did that happen?
Well, almost right away. But like I said, this was kind of an old school rough and tumble karate class. You know, we were animals. You know, but we were a little bit leery about the rattan sticks right away. Right. So, I mean, first thing we do, it's like we're watching, we're doing the techniques, and it's like, well, they're fighting with it. We need to fight with it too, but we were still karate guys. So we put on the masks, we get the gloves, and like I said, we were kind of leery about the sticks at first, so we actually made our own boppers because you couldn't buy them at the time. So we were getting 3/8 inch CPVC and pipe foam insulation and duct tape.
There it is.
Or at one point we were using nylon rods, and we just beat the ever living hell out of each other.
Yeah.
I mean, not a lot of skill, not a lot of technique. There wasn't even that, you know, here's our drill, this is what we're trying to do. We just went at it like we were doing one of our regular sparring matches, and, you know, you'd kick and get whacked in the leg, or you'd come in with a flurry of stick attacks and you'd punch somebody, and, you know, later on we'd all laugh about, you know, the cheese grater marks on the back of our knuckles, or, you know, the waffle print on your forehead from where your mask got crushed down on your face. But we got a little better. We got a little more refined after that.
So the stuff that you had learned, you know, before meeting Jared, then the stuff that you're working with Lamont, then you finally met Jared. When you were actually now sparring, how much of that stuff was making its way into the Dog Brother matches, would you say?
Well, the Dog Brothers material is, I don't want to say very cut and dried. It's very purpose driven.
Yeah.
And they do a lot of sparring. So the power striking that they do, they have a DVD on breaking down of power striking. They have different entries, and I mean that is stuff that we latched onto and we used, and we worked on the timing. I mean, fight after fight after fight.
Yeah.
And then we would, of course, invite other people in at all different times. Or people would get curious and it's like, yeah, sure, jump in with us. And then that was, I don't want to say a good time to take advantage of it, but that's when you can really try to use it, because, again, a lot of these other guys were your traditional martial artists, and they would come at it just like a fight. And you're like, I'm just going to use my footwork. Let me see how these angles work. Let me use the diamond on this one. Can I time him and use my shift and get out of the way just enough that I avoid that strike, or am I going to eat it? And we do a lot of that.
So, like you said, you would learn a sabayan drill, or you would learn, and then you would actually work on trying to apply something specific in your sparring matches.
Yes. You know, again, you know, from some of the Dog Brothers material, and this, as far as the drills in that, this is something that I've really tried to do more so, I would say, in the last 2 years with my colleague, is breaking out the core of these drills that we all practice and looking for practical application, and applying these fight principles into different fighting principles too.
Yeah. Can I ask you, mind if I, now that we got you here, can we pick your brain a little bit about some of these principles and strategies? Without revealing too much of the code book there?
Oh, yeah. You know what, though? You can talk about it. I can reveal as much as you want, but until you're out there and you got a stick swinging at your head,
truth.
You never know.
Truth. You got to get out there for yourself.
You can talk theory all day long until you get hit.
That's right. Oh, I love it. That's what folks need to do. You know, we're actually prepping our group right now for some sparring in the next few weeks. We've been taking a few weeks to get them ready for some full rattan sparring in a safe and measured way, blade rules. Mm-hmm. What are some suggestions that you would take a group or new practitioners who have never sparred before, never got into it with rattan? How would you would you just throw them in there? Would you start with some soft sticks first? What's some ways that you bridge that for newer students?
Yeah. Make sure that their mask fits and tell them to keep their jaw clenched. It's just go. No, just kidding. Not seriously. We don't do the light boppers anymore. We go right straight to rattan, because we found out there's really not that much of a difference, and you might as well go straight to it.
Yeah.
With the new guys, so like I was saying, we're for example, right now, for the last 4 weeks, we've been doing knife tapping. And so we did knife tapping for about 3 weeks, and then we did a sparring session with it to try to apply some of those principles. So now you're empty hand sparring a guy that's got a knife. And then we try to apply a couple of simple rules to it. Guy with the knife, you're trying to drive that knife home. Guy without the knife, you're just looking to avoid, to shift, to get out of the way. if you have an opportunity to close in and, you know, crash in and control. Prior to that, we spent about 6 weeks on 4 walls. So with the guys that are a little bit more experienced and, you know, from new guy to experienced guy, the new guy goes out, it's like, these are your basic 1, 2, 3, and 4. I want you hunting the hand. I want you hitting that hand, that lead arm. The guys that are kind of in the middle ground right there, or advanced students, I want to see you trying to apply one of those 4 walls. Put yourself in the situation where you're letting the new guy kind of crash in on you and try to get that brace, get some confidence behind that, and learning to thrust off of those lines, learning your shifting and your footwork, you know, as well as, you know, it's still sparring, it's still free for all, but try to apply the drill that we were doing and the principles that we touched on.
Yeah.
And again, new guys, we always go blade rules, and we always start off hand hunting and explain, you know, that's hand, that's forearm, that's upper arm. Then we introduce striking to the head, to the lead leg, into the body before we go all out. And for my more advanced students, when I send them out there to spar with the new guys, their job then is to not demolish them, not own them, because, you know, a lot of the times they can do that, is apply different skills, like leave your hand hanging out a little bit more, extend your range, or shorten up your stick play so that the new guy has a better target to strike at, and you're working on the skills of dipping and circling underneath those strikes, retracting, or having to use your footwork to stay out of their striking range.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, you know, so I actually had the pleasure of sparring you, but not with Ratand. I think when at like the second PTA
Right.
PTTA conference, we sparred, and it was like my first time actually sparring outside of our school. And we didn't spar with rattan, but it was like, it might as well have been. I feel like it was rattan with a lot of medical tape on it, and then like at the end was a rattan stick, and I was like, what is this medical tape going to do right now? And I was nervous, but I was cautious because I like just got there that day. You know, I wasn't there that long, and I didn't know what to expect. And actually, Mandala Lamont, I sparred him first, and I sparred you second. And so we were still in the hand hunting rounds. And I won't forget, because after like the first 30 seconds, I just wanted to just put my hands behind my back and like, you know, like just like you were constantly able to, but you weren't like trying too hard. And you were also in a certain range. You just were inching in and out the range. And you weren't trying to move too far out to get away from my attack. You were just simply moving your loads and waving in, waving out. And so, but the beautiful thing is that I was like, okay, let me, you know, just ground myself a little more. It's my first time. And then I finally got your hand after like 30 times you've gotten mine. And you responded, great job, nice. And, you know, and your response actually gave me a lot of confidence as someone who doesn't really know how to transition like tournament sparring or, you know, in a traditional martial arts school into stick sparring. I didn't know in that moment how to do it. It gave me a lot of confidence. So my question to you is, how do you think, so for people who have no like sparring, you know, experience, or who have, you know, don't know how to transition it into the Kali sparring experience, you know, how important is building confidence in as far as like your structuring of, you know, your sparring specific classes? How important is building confidence?
Oh, it's huge. Because like I said, I mean, if I were to go out there, if we were to spar and I go out and I just hit you willy-nilly, I nail you every time that I want to, and I just grind you down for a minute and a half. What good does that do? You've learned nothing. All you do is, you know, possibly just shelter maybe a few wild shots. And what am I trying to do? Just boost my own ego, say, hey, look what I can do to this person.
Right.
No, I mean, my responsibility as an instructor is to make you better. And in order to do that, I mean, you need to have the core principles. You need to have that structure for striking. You need to understand that. Then you need to learn the targeting. Then you need to learn the timing on your targeting and being able to strike targets and pick your targets. And I can't give it to you. You got to earn it.
Right.
But I can manipulate the way I fight and the way I move to make that a little bit easier for you. And every time you hit me, I'm going to maybe increase my game just a little bit, make you have to work just a little bit harder every time to get that. And when you strike, I mean, if you got your strike, you got the strike, you got the hit. It was clean. And yeah, I'm going to congratulate you on that. I want you to have that confidence to know, yeah, that you did that one right. The right angle, the right targeting, you got that strike fair and square. Because next time I come, I want you to hit me 2 times. I want you to hit me 3 times. You know, I want to be able to up the game. And that way, I mean, that should progress down through the people that you're teaching also.
Well, that was what was so great about it is that we then took that experience and then modeled that when we began to do sparring with our students. At that time, you had, Aguilan, Rich Howe was out there sparring. So to have you out there, Lamont out there, Rich out there, you know, yeah, we were able to go back and, you know, a lot of the things that you're talking about, I remember talking about then, very similar. Rich just commented, by the way, he's listening to the show from Florida.
How's it going, Rich?
Great sparring progression. One of the things that we've done, just picking all of your brains and having learned ourselves, what I'll have like sparring parameters. So it might just say, you know, only strike after they strike, or only do, you know, 3s and 4s, or lead with a watique, or, you know, I have literally like 50 of them. We'll cut them up in little pieces of paper, put them in a little hat, and then you have to draw what your limitation is as the student. You know, and then after that round, the 2 people have to try to figure out, okay, what was it that you were trying to do to me? You know, and what was it that you had to, you know, always lead first? I mean, it could be infinite in terms of the sparring progression, but we find that, similar to what you were saying, giving the students focus on this first.
Yeah.
Giving them specifics, you know, guiding those more advanced students. Okay, well, here's an opportunity for you to, like you said, leave your hand out more. We might say to work on your baiting. You know?
Yeah.
So when you're actually in the spar, now it's you in there. Okay, first 6 to 10 seconds. What are you looking for? Are you trying to set a tone? Are you trying to look for something? What's those first few moments like for you?
Those first couple moments, you know, we touch sticks, we knock hands, you know, we hit blades. I will immediately either back off, or I just kind of start to circle. I want to see how you move. I want to see how you carry yourself. Yeah. I'm going to start, you know, moving off to a zone where you got to follow me. Are you stiff-legged? Is your stance really wide? Are you, because, you know, maybe you're adrenalized, or you don't have, you know, the footwork to carry you through, or are you crisp and you're right on it? You know, you're moving in and you're tracking me right away. You know, I'm watching the lead shoulder. I'm watching the chest. How much are you moving your hand? How much, you know, are you blading your body and whatnot? Because that tells me, you know, my targets.
That's it.
You know, there's a lot of guys that get out there, and as soon as they hit, they get that little bit of adrenaline dump, and the big hand motions turn into small hand motions. And if they're circling within a couple 6 or 8 inches, it's like, I'm going to take that off. I'm going to nail that hand before I go in. You know, there's, you know, or like I said, too, guys will get stiff and they'll just kind of rock back and forth. So you're moving in and out. So now I know my game plan. I can angle and you're not going to move.
Yeah.
I'm going to catch you square standing on your feet.
So you have different game. So basically you're at the level where you have different game plans based on what you're seeing from the guy across, or the gal across from you.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, one thing, for good or bad, I feel like I'm really adaptive to sparring. If I go out with somebody that's got a lot of energy and they're really moving fast, I just key off of that and I do the same thing. I get in there, somebody not so much experienced, they're moving a little bit slower, a little bit stiffer. I draw my energy and my tone back of my fight, and I'll jab, I'll test the waters a little bit just to see where they're at, because, you know, aside from, you know, every now and again you've got your more advanced students, or we say, you know, like a Dog Brothers fight, sometimes you just got to have that full contact fight. Both of you consented, you know, to whatever the rules are, and you know you're just going to move and you're going to hit. I mean, that's different than I'm looking to play my game. But any situation other than that, I see as kind of a learning situation advantage, and I'm going to play at your level, and I'm just going to go just one step above.
Yeah.
Unless you get, like you said, when we were sparring there, and you've got people like Mandala Lamont, or you got Rich out there, these guys that have been fighting for years and very, very skilled and high energy guys, then the game is on. I mean, it's full blown. I'm moving and playing my game, and I'm feeding shots, looking for entries and testing the waters with them, but also trying to keep out of that striking distance. That's no situation to play. That's not learning. That's fighting and surviving.
Yeah, and watching you guys, it's art. I mean, it's beauty in motion, and so, but that comes with the blade rules. When you're in a situation where now it's like anything goes, and now you find, let's say you're against an opponent, he's just crashing. I mean, he's ready to receive shots, and he just wants to get in there and grab. I have less experience in those kind of in those contexts. I found that incredibly frustrating. And it's something I gotta work on, because I want to be more prepared for it. So when you are in those situations, you comfortable? Is that the stick grappling, the head on? Like, is that something where do you guys do that a lot in your school, preparing for those kind of stick sparring matches?
I'll say we do a little bit. We call it pressure testing, or force on force testing. Yeah. Because you get guys that fight like that, and I mean, sometimes you say, okay, this is blade rule. We're playing and respect the shot. Call the shot. You get hit in a good spot. It's like, okay, good. Back off for a minute. Tap back in and go. Reset. But you've got some people that, it's like, honestly, they're crashing in on you. Like, your blade rules and you're fighting knife on knife. You're just going to jump on me and roll around. We're going to stab the crap out of each other. Sometimes you got to stop and remind them of the rules. Right. Are you going to throw away your life? How you throw away your life?
There's levels of survival, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But we're coming up on that with the knife tapping, because we're doing, it's going to be empty hand versus blade this next week when we go to spar. So, timing again, it's going to be more the empty hand guy looking for that opportunity to crash in and try to control that blade. Far as grappling, I mean, that happens.
Yep.
I'm not terribly comfortable with it, but I started doing some jujitsu to try to get myself more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Because I've always done striking arts, and I'll say, if you'd asked me a year ago, I'm not a grappler. I've never been a grappler. I'm still not a grappler, but I'm a lot more comfortable on the ground. So I try to show a transition on these drills, because I always like to take the drills and show, these entries and some of the do-mog positions, some of the takedowns and some of the controls. And when we do this pressure testing, try to get in there. This is the takedown. And when we fight like this, there's always a third guy. There's always a mediator.
Yep.
Because things can get out of hand. Yeah. People you get that adrenaline dump. Some guys they can't hear him. So you got to have somebody there sometimes, to physically get in between them or start pulling people apart. But
yeah, it's funny to see.
Whenever we do that, it's agreed upon. That's where we're going to go before that.
Yeah, it's not the most comfortable, but we do agree you have to train for everything. And just in my experience, that's when the bigger, stronger guys who may not be as skillful is like, all right, this is my opportunity to bring leverage into the fight. And so it's a good challenge. It's something that we're working on, and we're gonna pick your brain a little bit more on that. I know you know more about that.
Yeah. So go ahead, Jenna.
Oh no, I was just gonna ask, speaking of when you are talking about the ground, I guess more so like finishing, once it gets to the grappling, finishing move, non-counterability realm, I'd noticed that's where people, not all the time, but that's where people tend to start picking up injuries, because now, something is in the ground and versus, like the pressure against the ground and the limb, that's when injuries can come into play, other than just like what could happen with the stick. Obviously, there's the bruising and breaking, but how do you, teach your students about like this? There's a level of like safety, because it isn't safe in the way that like having gear on, hand gear, foot gear, and the mouthpieces, but there is a level where it's like we're all trying to go home, you know, today. So how do you, you know, teach that level of safety when you're like saying, okay, hit each other with sticks, but still be safe, you know?
Yeah. I talk a lot before we ever start the match.
Right.
You know, there has to be a level of mutual respect there between the parties, both parties that are in there. Like I said, third person mediator. So I mean, even when I'm in and fighting with my other students and doing the same thing, I'll pick somebody out, and it's like if the fight starts to go this direction, this is the time to stop. And I mean, it might sound kind of silly, but so we had the mats out here a couple of months ago, and we were working from bad positions on the ground. You got a guy that's got mounts. You got somebody that's smothering your face. You got somebody that's got your arms tied up. What knife are you carrying, and how are you going to draw your knife? And we're idiots. I'll just say that right off because somebody else will. But I bring their knives that they normally carry. Right. So we had live blades. But the whole team, we had the area. I got 6 people standing around, and we had the safe, you know, the safe word. When the blade came out, everybody yelled, "Blade, blade, blade!" And the mediator is in there to stop the fight, because the goal of the match was to be able to access your blade in this nasty situation. Mm-hmm. Aside from that, I mean, if you go back to the stick fighting with blade rules, if you go back to the knife fighting, sometimes it takes a minute to back people off and say, this is a blade, respect the blade, you know, think about it. Again, are you throwing away your life?
Right.
You know, this is the game we play, and you got to have that mutual respect. But, you know, on the other side, there's also, okay, it's a stick match. Somebody's going to crash in and tackle you. It's like, it's bad, but you know, if it looks like it's getting out of hand, somebody's being dominated, that's the time to end it. And then we go back and look what could have done better, what could have been there. Because the one thing about the weapon fighting is if you do your striking, your punching and kicking, if you're backpedaling straight and you're throwing shots, unless you're Anderson Silva, you can't, I mean, you don't hit hard. There's not a lot of force. Mm-hmm. But with the Pikiti and with the weapons, it don't matter. My knife is so sharp, I don't have to be able to hit with a lot of force to be able to open you up. So we've got guys backpedaling or doing a great big circle while the other guy is trying to bum rush them. So we'll set it up with the sparring. Yeah. I'll teach these guys how to crash in. Here's the nonverbals you need to look for. Here's the body position you need to know to crash in on a guy. Mm-hmm. And then once everybody's got it and they're crashing in, it's like, okay, now when you do this, you know this guy's going to crash in. Now you need to start to circle and learn to do this. It's like, because you got a stick in your hand, you got a knife, you don't have to have that. It's nice to have the good solid stance, but you don't need to have it to cause damage.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, you can have a knife and you can bug out, just turn tail and completely run. You got a couple good strikes in, you just got to wait, 15 to 30 seconds for shock to set in for that guy, or, let him stand there and bleed.
Yeah.
If it were a real fight.
Mm-hmm.
Even with
no reason to stand in there and wrestle trying to get a hold of that.
What's worked, even with blade rules, but with the rattan stick, when those guys are crashing, I mean, you get a good strike on the knee or on the leg, and it's a huge deterrent for whatever happens. Even if they get their hands on you afterwards, that leg, I'm going to the legs on those crashers.
So now it's time for our disclaimers. Do not try this at home.
Yeah, absolutely.
I loved hearing just you share some of that with your group. And me and Jenna were talking a lot about rattan sparring right now, but I like that even in your responses, you made sure that there's much more types of sparring. There's empty hand versus blade sparring. There's it doesn't just have to be there's blade sparring. There's blade versus blade sparring. It's not just simply rattan stick. And so thank you for reminding me.
A couple of weeks ago, the guys were all getting froggy and everybody was eager to fight. We just moved back out into the parks, and I was like, you know what, just bring your kit, bring your whole gear. And it's like weapons smorgasbord. It's like, we're going to start off, everybody's going to have a knife fight. We'll do 60 seconds or we'll do 90 seconds. Then everybody's going to have a stick fight. Now it's like, well, what do you want to do? It's like, well, I brought my tomahawk. All right. Who wants to fight him? Who's going to do this? Who wants, pick a different weapon system, or we just kind of mixed and matched. we spent 2 hours in the park, you know, bruising each other up.
Mhm.
And then for the next 3 or 4 days afterwards, you know, getting the text messages of everybody. Oh, my ribs still hurt. Oh, look at this bruise. Oh, this just showed up. Who hit me here? And we just laugh about it.
Right. And that's great when you got a core bunch of people who are familiar with each other. You know, it's no hard feelings. Everybody's there to learn.
Yeah.
You know, we should all be aspiring to get to those levels. You know, we're trying to,
Yeah.
you know, we have some of that in our group. We're trying to get there. You know, I think for Jen and I, we measure the intensity. You know what I mean? We have, you know, we have yet for anybody in our group to just go full all out. We're measuring, getting everybody more and more ready for those levels.
Yeah.
I wanted to halfway switch. Something just jumped in my mind when we were talking about the parks, and I was thinking about your environment and where you are in the outdoors. I was talking to Jason earlier. I said I live vicariously through a lot of the pictures that you post on social media because you have incredible respect for nature. I'm here in the big city, so when I see you out in the wilderness, it's like, oh man, that's right. That's where I want to get to. I know for us, being in the urban environment, it impacts my colleague. You know, we teach what we've been taught, but I know that a lot of our students, they come to our class thinking about the bus, the subway, transitioning from the ATM. And so we factor a lot of that in scenarios in our class. We're always usually talking about something. And sadly to say, students are always bringing stories to the table. There's always something going on in the big city out here. How does your environment, would you say, or does it impact your colleague in any way?
Oh, yeah. We don't have the same environment here. The buses, subways. But a lot of the guys I work with, ex-military and former or current police officers. I've had a couple guys that work in the prison system too. One of the things I like to do, we teach technique, we talk theory, we work on these things. Some of the things I do with them is, what's something that you've seen? Bring it in here, let's test it out in the lab. Let's see, what's the Kali answer to this? But otherwise, I mean, we've got a lot of room out here. Everybody has a huge personal bubble.
Yeah.
So it's a different environment. Hold on, I'm going to have to plug in my phone here real quick, but I'll keep it with you. But even close quarter, I mean, you still end up in the situations where you may, you're out to the movie theater, you're in the store, people are still crowding in, things getting close. So now you're back into close quarter environments, and the key here, long range, or it's close range, ultra close quarters. So we talk a lot about situational awareness. There's always don't be in the situation that you shouldn't be, don't go that looks sketchy. Yeah. If you can't avoid something like that, head on a swivel. Look over the shoulder, check in your back. Working with partners on stuff that I'm this way, I'm going to have you're going to look that direction. Which side? I mean, even the point at times that my wife thinks I'm crazy for it, but it's like when we're in places, we go to Salt Lake, we go to this city or that city, it's like, I need you to be on my left side. Yeah. Because I carry my knife on my right side, or I appendix carry my weapon. I can't have you holding on to my right arm if I'm here. We've done little drills where we've played. It's like, if I'm going to move, my wife won't do it. Our colleague group will, move behind me, practice moving in synchronicity with me and staying out of, range of something else that, somebody that's trying to strike, somebody that's trying to grab.
Yeah. I didn't even, you had even answered the question in even a way I hadn't even intended it, and even better. It's really interesting. Definitely, man, the urban environment, it does make people it's more present that you have to be alert. And at the same time, sometimes people are more like skittish, maybe a little more uptight. Whereas I guess like what you're doing is good. Hey guys, just because our environment, it's not as, we don't have these reminders you know, this is going on every day, but we still have to keep our head on the swivel, like you said, and stay alert. One of the things that I was actually thinking, it was kind of going along the lines of, you know, I have to relax students a lot being in this environment too. You know, it's good, it's live, but there's a level of also relaxing the mind, making the mind alert and ready for the urban environment, but also trying to relax more. One of the things I just appreciate, you know, you seem to exude a lot of patience, you know, and it seems that, you know, in your Kali, you could be very live, you could be very aggressive, dynamic in your movements. But there's a patient undertone to how you fight that, to me, it seems like that's probably coming from that environment where you get to, I don't know if I'm stereotyping, there's more time to reflect, maybe more opportunities for silence.
Or maybe that's just my knowledge.
And maybe that's just you living vicariously.
Maybe that's just me.
So you do hunting, correct? Can I say that? Is that too much to reveal?
Oh, no.
Does your Kali and your hunting intersect?
Oh, well, of course, you know, always searching for the best knife.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
You know, and don't, you know, it, again, you know, to reveal too much, maybe to sound a little bit ridiculous, but there's been times when, you know, one of my students, we've been out hunting, we've been on a long hike, and it's like, carry the sticks with us, or we've brought the knives with us. I mean, there was one day we were way out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, there's not even cell service. I mean, I don't know if that's a thing there. I mean, it's not like an intentional, like the tower went out. I mean, you were 20 miles from being able to get a cell signal. And we're in the backwoods with hatchets from our packs, practicing throwing them and sticking them in trees and talking theory and work through a couple drills here and there, because we're just hanging out and waiting. You know, we're not on an active hunt at that point, but
that's it.
You know, it's become a part of life, so it's infused everything.
I guess I'm getting a little bit closer to how it's just how I asked the question. It wasn't that good. You know, this is a more survival based environment, you know, is what I'm saying. For us, yeah, it's survival in the urban area, but it's like I said, trains and buses and individuals, you know, there's being in more in nature, having to deal with, okay, yeah, maybe not that human being, but there's wild animals everywhere. Your situational and environmental awareness is now on a.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Again, you know, that situational. You know, big point. Not walking around looking at my cell phone. I mean, I sent pictures. I got lots of good pictures, but my phone is in my pocket. My head is up, and I'm looking. And you see, being a hunter, I noticed these things. It was great because this last trip we were in Glacier, we got tickets. We went on this little bus ride up over this god awful road. I mean, it was like sheer drop off, 1,200 feet off of one side, and the bus driver's been on it 100 times, and she's driving and talking and saying stuff, and like, maybe we'll see an animal. And I'm like, there's a deer right there. Oh, there's the marmot over there, and nobody else can see it or find this little thing. I am catching little motions, you know, in the bushes as they're moving, catching them in the corner of my eye. But that's, you know, and people miss that because, you know, they're scrolling or they're posting it, they're taking pictures, or they don't have that, you know, I guess, where they're accustomed to looking and noticing those things.
It's deep. You know, and like you said, it's now you have to pull your cell phone out. That's the I was with my girls the other day. Long story short, saw some family. My girls are doing something. Family said, hurry, get your phone, take a picture. You know, and I was like, no, I'm just gonna appreciate this moment. Yeah. And everyone's who's here. If you're in this moment, you have to appreciate it. And if you're not here, that's just what it is. You know, that's the urban environment. What memory is for. Yeah, that's what the memories are for. Pen and pen, you know. Here you're gonna have, like you said, 20 cell phones out all the time, recording violent encounters and things like that. But I'll tell you, if a squirrel got into an apartment in Philadelphia, people wouldn't know what to do. I'm serious. You know what I mean? You get some, every now and then you get some possums and raccoons, depending on the area of Philadelphia that you're in. Even the, seriously, bad neighborhood, good neighborhood. And folks are like, oh, there's a raccoon, the raccoon out back. It's just a different, and that's what Jen and I was saying. Wow,
911.
Yeah. I mean, you have a lot of people who are probably training Kali, MMA, doesn't even matter, wouldn't even know what to do. Squirrel got in your house and hissed at you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's a different thing. And I say that, I'm going to share a true experience. I was throwing out some trash in the backyard, and there was a squirrel in the trash can that I had. I didn't know it at the time. I flipped the lid, and that sucker jumped out right at me, and it caught me off guard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, I stood my ground. I didn't, but it made me think, wow, man, that thing could have jumped at me, bit my neck, and I'm making a funny story out of it. But
yeah,
I'm training for a certain kind of animal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And now when you encounter a different kind of animal, if you haven't trained it, you're not prepared for it. So
yeah.
These are the lessons.
Again, a level of awareness, also reactivity.
Yeah.
You got fight, flight, or freeze. It's funny you said yesterday. What was it? No, last night. Just my shed. I had to go get something out of the shed. I left it open all night. Closed it back up in the morning. I go and I pop it open last night, and this moth in my head, it was like it was like some kind of a black butterfly. I thought it was a bat.
Right.
But stuff comes out at you, scares the hell out of you. I open the door, the thing flies in my face. I move back and I swat it to the ground. It's like, oh my God. My wife comes out. She's like, what's going on? I'm like, it's a bat. I think a bat just flew in my face. It comes up off the ground. It's like, oh, never mind. It's just a butterfly. Sorry.
Yeah, animals popping out at you,
Oh, yeah.
You slapping it and then you taking it down, that's hilarious. And I'm thinking about that dang squirrel. I'm going to track that squirrel down. I'm going to find you, my friend. You know what I mean? It's not about trash,
Take it with you next time.
That's exactly what we've been. There it is, because there's been raccoons in the back too. So it's like, you know what? And it's not even the raccoons. They're traveling families out here in Philly. Right. And so you'll really be in certain places of Philadelphia and you've got a family of raccoons crossing the street. 6 or 7.
And they look at you like, what? They're like, why are you looking at me like I'm special? They're like, I deserve to be here,
Right.
They rarely bother people, but it's just, it's just something that you just think about. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So what are some things that you personally are looking to kind of build more? And everyone kind of has their moments where like they're emphasizing something or cleaning up or polishing up something, and there's always in Kali, it seems infinite. So what's something that you're kind of looking to grow and build more in?
I haven't been real actively learning for like the last 3 years. I mean, I've been teaching. I've been doing our annual conference, but it's not like it was before. I'm not going to California 2 or 3 times a year. I'm not going to Texas, Philly or New York, catching these seminars here and there. I haven't been to the Philippines for 4 years, so I feel like I need to get some fresh material, something to kind of spark my brain and going again. The other thing, I'm kind of getting a little bit of pressure from my guys to actually open a school. And it's a small group of guys. I got 6 guys. I charge a very nominal fee. And 90% of the time, I don't even remember what that fee is and who's paid me. But that's neither here nor there. But, looking at renting a place or subleasing a place, which I did before, or trying to recruit students, I'm kind of on the fence about it. It's like I want to, but then, it becomes the business side of it. Who do I let in? Who do I keep out? How do I screen? What do I teach? Because, I mean, anybody can come in off of the streets. And if I'm looking to pay the bills, then, here's a new student. I mean, I'm going to teach you like I always teach you. I'm going to give you that encouragement and try to keep you there as a student. But then, what happens later on? I find out you got a domestic battery charge against you. You know, you got some white supremacist tattoos running up and down your back. Now I just got done teaching you where to place a knife in somebody if you didn't already know. So that's, I mean, that responsibility now is mine.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas now, I mean, as the situation is now, I mean, I've got the screening. It's a friend of a friend. Nobody comes into the class without a recommendation from somebody else, but I'm also, it's not a job. I'm not looking to pay anything, to pay rent, to get in, you know, so I can be a lot more selective about that. And I see the same thing with the jiu-jitsu school. We get these guys, you know, we get, martial arts is transformative. But any activity is. My wife's an ultra runner. You've got lots of statics in there, and in, you know, in martial arts and other activities, they find something else to grasp onto to replace that they've had, and some of them become better people, but some of them go right back to it. Some of them become worse people, and you know, I struggle with that.
You know, without us revealing too much about, you know, some of our process over here, because that's real. I'm so glad. I'm hoping a lot more instructors are taking it that serious. We know that as a business, Jen and I, at least until we can get a better model, we know we do have a limitation, I guess, in how far we're going to grow, because we can't just take in anybody. And there is a vetting process of time, of other measures that we go through on our own, psychological, physical, to learn and make sure. And a lot of it comes down to how much can they also integrate with the group. You know,
I mean, I think that the beautiful thing, and I said it before, I'll say it again. The beautiful thing about Kali is that, you know, no matter what affiliation you are dealing with in PTK, there does seem to be this consistent, be your best self, especially initially, in that, you know, everyone kind of establishes this idea of brotherhood and sisterhood, which I think is really beautiful. And it forces people who are from different backgrounds, you know, whether it's like, you know, occupational or ethnicity, it requires people to come together and be their best self. And so there's this like integrity backbone. So we find, like, I find what happens in particular with our group is that, you know, if you're a jerk or, you know, someone who's not really a good fit for the group because you're not willing to uphold that, and it usually happens pretty early on. You know, it's hard to hide being an asshole for so long. It's hard to hide that. So especially in the system where there's such sensitive material and, you know, so many things to try to understand, like, you know, Kali is calculus, it's college level material. And so, you know, in that figuring out process, you know, someone really has to push hard, come in humility, you know, and if you're someone who doesn't belong there, you tend to reveal yourself pretty quickly. And it tends to, even people who still stay, it's really visible to everyone. So it is difficult though to be open in that way, because sometimes I do think that some people who are like that don't even deserve that opportunity. You know what I mean? So it is it's difficult.
And Jenna, you know, she's being kind with the a-hole world. You have a lot of a-hole, you know, calling them assholes or jerks. So you just got a lot of manipulators, a lot of people with bad intentions. We finally arrived at a point where we said we have an energy in the group where it's kind of like I don't know if you've ever seen the dog whisperer. He's like, he brings the dog to another pack, and then he can see how the dynamic is just based on, he already knows his crew. You know, the crew already knows the order. They know the standard. They know what it should look like, should sound like, the energy exchange, you know, how to be patient with people. And, you know, as the classes and the months go on, it begins to be apparent, like, all right, maybe this person's intentions for coming, you know, isn't so sincere.
It is, there is that bit of that self-selecting, or that kind of group selecting. I've seen that with people that have come and gone. Those guys that you think, they'll be okay, they'll be a good fit, and they hang out for a little bit. It's like, oh, maybe not.
You know,
but I guess
sorry, I was gonna say, and that's people with bad intentions. Then you have people who, like you said, have good intentions. They're trying to be transformative, They're looking for this to be an outlet. They want to change. Some people we've had, they want to change anger issues, perhaps, but after a while, it becomes evident, like, there's still some self-work that has to be done here. We've never asked anybody to not be part of our group. We've always asked people to just work on their transformation. That's really what it's been. In a kind of way,
I can't say the same. I've had people approach me out in public, people that I either know from my past or I know of, and they're like, "Hey, I hear you teach this knife stuff. I'd be really interested. I'd like to do that." And I take a nicer route about it. There's been a couple of people I just say, I don't think that's for you. If you're interested, there are other martial arts schools here in town. Maybe you would like to try one of them out. I think you're a better fit.
Well, when we, for some people, we tell them straight up, it's going to be at least a year before you may get to the blade. And so, whether that's true or not, it's just to kind of see, are you ready to put in that work? There's a lot of time we spend before people are able to get to the blade work, at least in our school.
Which, looking at or considering opening a place and teaching in a more regular format and looking for students, that's the thing that I've considered with the curriculum, is having the regular classes the nights where it's stick, it's empty hand, double stick training, and the bladed stuff, the entry stuff, the more sensitive, detailed, is the advanced class that nobody advances to without that vetting process. But, to go back a little bit on Jenna's I question, also to, I think I more answered the question I wanted to than what she asked, but for polishing, I'll say like I said, I'm looking to polish a little bit more material, something additional for myself. But the other thing that I really want to focus on, that I want to polish, is making sure, my students are good people and that they're efficient practitioners. I don't promote anybody that hasn't earned it already, and I want to be that guy, say, one of my students, for whatever reasons, out there in Philly, decides to visit, says, "Hey, can you hook me up with a group?" Say, "Yeah, go train with Angola and Jenna." Let them know. When they're done, have you contact me back and say, "Man, he is a stand-up guy or gal. He is a great person. His skills are on point, very respectful." And, or, at these events that we go to, if we meet up sometime and again, you're sparring, that later on you could come back and say, "Hey, that student of yours, man, that was a great time I had fighting them. I learned and I advanced myself."
Mm-hmm.
That's always an honor when we hear that as instructors, man. Jason, I want to take a minute. We have had some comments running as you've been talking in the chat. There's some folks who've been tuning in, every Sunday. It means a lot to us, and we just got to say that just off of break. We're doing better jobs at promoting and trying to let the PTK community know about these events. And so for you folks who are getting noticed sometimes last minute that we're having an event and you're still tuning in, saying positive words, it really means a lot. We have Fabrice from France sending love and strength. Morgan from Citadel Combat Arena, we already discussed. Rich, he happened to say, he had a great experience sparring with you and you pushed him. It's like calculated moves, the way you were moving back and forth. And Morgan also chimed in about, building confidence in students and about the importance of vetting where he's at in Portland, Oregon. Because, there's a lot of political stuff going on in the world. We keep politics out of our group for the most part because we believe in the warrior code. Like, people are warriors and you train together. That's the best way we learn. But as Morgan is mentioning, and otherwise, some people are going to want to learn this for the wrong reasons. So we just have to make sure we're responsible in who we're teaching and training.
Yeah.
Speaking of potentially opening a group, I hope you do it. We'll support to the best of our ability. And it's good that people got to hear some of the things that instructors have to think about when you want to open a business, or you want to make this a little bit bigger. Where is the Red Desert? Is it Red Desert Dogs or is it just Red Desert Kali?
It's Red Desert Dogs Kali.
Yeah. All right. Where does that come
So
from? Cool name.
there's an area not too far from here that's called the Red Desert.
Okay. There it is.
We have a lot of sandstone outcroppings. We have actually the largest shifting sand desert in North America, not far from here. When we started, Grand Tuhan was on this pit bull kick, and everybody had to be the pit bulls of this area or that area, and they were looking for natural structures and this and that and around. And so, kind of going through, just trying to see what chimes. We got a place out here, there's White Mountain, there's Boar's Tusk, there's Devil's Tower, trying, to regionalize things. And that one just kind of clicked and stuck with everybody.
That's nice.
It was, of course, the Kali group, we don't want to, it's our own little enclave of practitioners in an area that we're not directly in the Red Desert, but I mean, we're at the edges of it, where we could be considered bits and pieces of it. It is a desert. So it came together, it rung, it kind of stuck with everybody, and they like the idea of dogs. Again, we're kind of a pack. Everybody's got each other's back. Everybody knows pecking order.
Hey, the Red Desert Dogs Kali, we're going to support it. As you grow, we're definitely going to share some more information in the description box about where people can locate you. Do you guys have a website yet, or it's just social media so far?
Still just social media. Yeah. It's on Facebook. It's I believe the active one right now is Red Desert Dogs, GRRS, so Green River Rock Springs. We're the only ones in Southwest Wyoming. I haven't put up a website again. I mean, because I'm not actively looking to recruit students to open that school. That's one thing. If I did, I've got to have that web presence and be there. Right. Always just by word of mouth.
Yeah. Well, when we first met, not when we first met, another time that we connected in Utah, myself, it was you, it was Lamont, Dan Allison, Adam Grover, two other huge, it's just a great team of people that you were with. I wanted to shout those guys. Definitely our good friend Grover out. Dan, I haven't seen Dan in a number of years, but you guys left a very strong impression on me. It was my first time out to that part of the U.S., and it was like, oh, okay, all right, this is great. This is a great experience. And so I know that the team that you probably have assembled that's supporting you, that's saying to the teacher, come on, teach, let's do this. Let's get this school. Yeah. Could be something beautiful, man. Trust those guys,
Yeah. They're all still active with me. Good guys, great guys. They're there to push me too. There's some nights where it's just, I'm tired and I'm going, and Dana's like, hey, I'm going to pick you up for Kali. Or, like on this last vacation I was on, staff between Dan and Adam, hey, are you guys available? Can you still run classes for the guys? And they're like, yeah, sure. Just send them a quick text message. This is where I want you to take this drill. This is a little bit to cover. And afterwards they report back to me, this is what we did. These guys really enjoyed it. And afterwards kind of debrief. This is where we took it. This is what we did. What do you think? And it's like, you guys are doing a good job, but they need that time instructing too, and to be working with the newer guys. And yes, they're knuckleheads, every one of them, just the same as me. But any one of those guys that give you the shirt off their back, they'd have your back regardless. Like you said, race, color, creed, political alliance, whatever. It's that warrior code.
That's right, man. Love you guys all the more for it. That's worth more than having 100 students. It is. Having a big famous brand and group is, in our opinion, just having a small group of good people that you could trust. You guys are, after you're the instructor or you might be the lead, but after the class, there's a family dynamic where people are trusting each other, helping each other grow in and out of Kali. That goes back to that partner. That is very special people. Yep. You know what I mean? And the fact that you have that's worth everything. Some people can't find that. So respect to the group, good brother.
It's tough to find, but it's good to hold on to. And I can say even those guys, there have been a couple of them, because we're in two different towns and, everybody seems to be shift workers here and there. Adam's got together with Donnie a couple times, or Tony, or, you know, they get together and train on off days, or somebody has a question, and, you know, really helping to bring up the newer students. We still, every now and again, we kind of go through this thing. I'll call Dan and have him out to lunch, and, you know, a couple weeks later, he's got me out to lunch, and, you know, so it's a very tight-knit group, and we're always there helping each other, you know, and not only pushing each other to be better people and martial artists, but there for support of each other too.
Yes, sir. Respect, man.
Yeah.
Well, the viewers we got Nomad Kali. Good to see you, good brother Royce. People are chiming in and definitely supporting this idea of having quality, you know, quality relationships in the group. Jason, any final thoughts? You know, you want to leave us with, the viewer with, okay, we could go in a couple of directions. Your vision of the future. Any advice for students or instructors, or some final words of wisdom you'd like to impart us with?
Or D.
All of the above, good brother. You have
all of the above. Oh no, wisdom. You're looking in the wrong place. You know, I just one story that I like to relay is, you know, with these different colleague groups. I mean, we've met in different environments across, you know, different groups of practitioners under the same art, and we've all over from this. Like I said, when I started in martial arts, and there were a few other martial arts I did prior to PTTA, even when I was first exploring this. Very, very hardcore Japanese. Remember, you know, numerous schools. You didn't even look at the head instructor. You looked down at your feet. You interacted. He would give a direction, and you interacted with his other instructors. Or you walked into a place, you bowed to the instructor. You bowed to the mat. You bowed to the teachers. I've never seen any of that in PTTA. Other than, you know, occasionally with Grand Tuhon or someone, the little, is it a Makapo?
Right.
But, you know, it's the only group I've ever been with where you can be standing next to somebody in a seminar format working with them, and it's like they've maybe been doing it for 6 months. They've been doing it for 20 years. Nobody's up there slinging trash. They're like, oh, look at my rank. This is who I am. You know, you should be this to me, or I'm so much this better than you, or, oh, you know, looking up. It's just usually just a pretty chill group of guys, and everybody's great and interested, and I love that environment and really try to push it. And I think that's something as a group we need to keep together is, you know who's instructing, you know who's teaching it, and everybody else is there to learn and interact and, you know, build that family and that respect, and still always learning and bettering.
That's beautiful.
It is.
That's it.
Right.
That's so true. And I mean, that's it. That's it. We need that. We need that love and that respect, sir. Thank you for sharing that. That's very, very true. You don't even know. Sometimes you go to someone, who's that guy? You don't even know.
Yeah.
You know? And what I love sometimes, I don't do it as much because I know a lot of times people underestimate me because, you know, people are underestimating, but you'll have some people that move in ways in Kali you would never expect. They could twirl that. You're like, I could never imagine that guy. Right. This would be the guy who could do that. And so it teaches a lot about humility.
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you, Mandala Jason, for taking this time.
Thank
sir.
you for being inspirational. As I said earlier, you know, one of the, you know, most important matches or, you know, pre-sparring progressions that I had, you definitely helped me to, you know, bridge and learn sparring in a different context. And it was very, a very positive experience that just gave me a lot more confidence and tools.
Awesome.
Future. So thank you so much.
Then I did my job.
You did. I was over there. I was like, "Get him, Jason! Get him!" You know what I mean? So, then you made her really good at sparring, and I was like, "Oh, now I'm sparring her. I got to get on my A game." So, all jokes aside, we hope to get out, you know, hopefully to a PTTA conference sooner than later. We try to make it at least every 2 years out there, and so we're well overdue. And if not, just want to come out and take you up on seeing the great outdoors, my friend.
Oh. Absolutely, man. The invitation is there and the door is open anytime.
Brother.
Thank you.
We're gonna close
Likewise.
out here. Please hang on for a second, Jason, while we shut down the broadcast. But we do want to thank you all once again, the viewer, for participating. This is about us, the community, for PTK, by PTK, about PTK. So continue to share your thoughts and ideas with us, and continue to tune in. We're closing out. So thanks again.
All right.
Wisdom, respect.
Life, health, and success.
Till next time.